again to Congressman Sestak now. Congressman, what do you make of that, that the parties are going to take these bad jobs numbers and run with them?
I don't think these job numbers should have been the necessary impetus to make us do something now. Neil, we've known as much as 2 months ago that if we do nothing, the GDP will drop 3.5% next year and 5 million jobs will be lost. And that's why you see a 5% GDP, about $750 billion being the number thrown around for this economic stimulus bill, because if we do nothing, 2010 will lose 1.6% of our GDP. This merely says to those who were cautious, too cautious, as we've been too much in this entire crisis, to say, do it now.
But you haven't really been cautious, right? Between financial rescues, auto rescues, stimulus. I mean, you guys have spent trillions. It doesn't seem to be a lot of caution there. Why don't you see how all the money you've already allocated and spent, how that does?
Absolutely. You know, I wrote my first letter to Mr. Bernanke and Secretary Paulson back in February asking to do this. But look, we were way too cautious. Look at Lehman's. We made a drastic error there. And when that money market that was invested in them dropped below $1, all of a sudden money markets freezed up. And then we made a very cautious, wrong decision of not buying securities. Instead, we put money into capital. And so those types of cautious steps have meant that we have not got the credit flowing sufficiently. Yes, I buy off that the LIBOR Treasury spread is now down to about 130 basis points. Okay, I get that. And I understand now that, yes, 10-year Treasury bonds are low. And, yep, mortgages are low. But we don't have the monetary policies yet that are making this system work in the credit-wise. Yes, we're keeping it alive because we've got this quantitative easing policy where we're buying paper by the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, but Congressman, I know what you're
with
saying.
With the economic stimulus bill, we can't get out of this recession.
Understood. And you've got a very astute overview of what's been happening in credit markets. I applaud you because it's more than most of your colleagues. Now, what I do want to ask you, though, Congressman, is whether you're worried about the same thing Senator John McCain was worried about, an interview we're going to air a little bit later in this show, and that was this notion that, wait a minute, we could earmark this thing to death. Now, he doesn't want to see that.
Yes.
We're getting an indication out of Barack Obama he doesn't want to see that, but in the Senate, we're going to see that, aren't we?
Yeah, you know, I agree with John McCain on this earmarking. I've sat down with a couple heads of the subcommittee on appropriations earlier this week, and they're saying we're going to do it by formulae, that we are actually going to give it that way. And yet I've heard people say, no, I've got a better plan for infrastructure. Let me give you $85 billion of projects to do. And let me tell you 2 reasons why I don't agree with that. Again, it's the earmarking process. Loss of credibility that Congress cannot, as you well know, afford to add to its loss of credibility already. Second, infrastructure. Yes, I can support that. But we know, let's just step back, that $1.60 is creating the GDP for every dollar into it. But we also know this. 9% of the construction workers are women, just 9%. 13% of all our engineers are women, and yet 12% of all families are headed by single women. 42% of all working families have both people working. We've got an issue here if we want to get the stimulus to those who are hurting. So just saying all of a sudden, let me earmark my favorite infrastructure process has 2 downsides to it. So I agree on that. The longer concern, of course,
let's see what it does.
Congressman,
I wish you had more time. I just hope they adhere to the strong words you just mentioned. But very good having you.
Good to be with you, Neil, again. Happy New Year.
All right. To you as well.